If you became a U.S. citizen through naturalization, you might be feeling unsettled right now. You've invested years into building your life here, taken the oath, studied civics, and believed that citizenship was the ultimate protection. Then you hear alarming headlines about changes to immigration policy, and suddenly you're wondering, am I safe? Can the government take my citizenship away? Do I need to do something right now to protect myself and my family? I understand that fear, and I want to tell you something clearly. Today we're cutting through the noise and giving you the facts about what's actually happening and what's actually protected. You're going to hear the truth about naturalized citizenship in America because knowledge is your most powerful tool right now. Let me be direct with you from the start. The United States Constitution guarantees that citizenship, once lawfully granted through naturalization, cannot be arbitrarily stripped away. This is not an opinion or a political position. This is constitutional law that has been upheld for over a century. That said, there is confusion out there. There are proposals being discussed, and there are claims circulating on social media that conflate different immigration matters. Our job today is to untangle those claims to show you what's real, what's proposed, what's speculation, and what's actually law right now in 2026. Naturalized citizenship is a permanent status once granted. This means that if you went through the naturalization process, passed your civics test, took the oath of allegiance, and received your certificate of naturalization from a judge or immigration officer, you are a U.S. citizen with full constitutional protections. The government cannot revoke your citizenship simply because policies change. This is not subject to executive order, congressional whim, or political pressure. The Supreme Court established this principle decades ago, and it remains the law of the land today. However, I want to address the one narrow exception that does exist, because it's important you understand the actual legal landscape. Citizenship can be denaturalized, which means having citizenship revoked only if it is proven in federal court that your naturalization was obtained through fraud or concealment of material fact. This is an extremely high legal bar. It requires actual court proceedings, evidence, and due process. It is not automatic, and it is not easy to pursue. The government would need to prove, for example, that you deliberately lied on your N-400 application, that you misrepresented your background or criminal history, or that you hid information that would have made you ineligible for naturalization at the time you applied. This is why denaturalization cases are rare and require substantial evidence and legal action. Now, let's talk about what's actually happening in the policy landscape in 2026. The Trump administration has proposed various enforcement measures targeting immigration violations and undocumented status. These proposals and enforcement actions are not about naturalized citizens. They are focused on immigration enforcement, deportation of people without legal status, and border security. It's crucial that you understand this distinction because misinformation often blurs these lines intentionally or carelessly, creating panic where there isn't a legal basis for it. What we are seeing in 2026 is increased immigration enforcement activity, expanded ICE operations, and stricter detention policies. These measures are directed at undocumented immigrants and people whose immigration status is not lawful. Naturalized citizens are not the target of these enforcement actions because you are U.S. citizens. You have the same constitutional protections as anyone born in America. This might seem obvious, but I'm saying it explicitly because the fear circulating in immigrant communities right now suggests people are not clear on this point. Let's talk about what this administration has actually changed versus what people are claiming or speculating about. There are legitimate policy discussions happening about whether certain categories of immigration should be restricted, whether asylum rules should be tightened, whether work visas should be more limited, and whether border enforcement should be more aggressive. These are policy debates. They do not change the status of people who are already naturalized citizens. If you are a naturalized citizen, you are not in these policy categories. You are not subject to deportation. You do not need a work visa. Your status does not hinge on current immigration policy debates. What has changed is the political tone and the intensity of enforcement. Immigration enforcement operations have become more visible, more frequent, and more aggressive. In some cases, this can create a chilling effect in communities where people who are not the target of enforcement, like naturalized citizens or legal permanent residents, may feel anxious or worried. That anxiety is understandable given what you see in the news, but it's important to distinguish between real legal risk and emotional fear based on a changed environment. Let me address one specific claim that circulates regularly, because it directly affects naturalized citizens' peace of mind. Some people claim that the Trump administration is pushing for the ability to denaturalize citizens more easily, or to revoke citizenship based on political disagreements or other reasons. This is not what is happening. There has been no change to the legal standard for denaturalization. There has been no legislation passed that would lower the bar for revocation of citizenship. There have been no court rulings that change constitutional protections for naturalized citizens. This claim, while it appears in social media and some news sources, is not grounded in actual legal changes. It is speculation or rumor, not fact. Now, there is a different conversation happening in some political and legal circles about whether certain immigration frauds should be prosecuted more aggressively or whether more denaturalization cases should be pursued. This is a proposal, not a law. This is a discussion in policy circles, not an implemented change. Even if such proposals moved forward, they would still be bound by constitutional requirements for due process, evidence, and the high legal standard for proving fraud or concealment. In other words, even if the administration wanted to pursue denaturalization more aggressively, it would still be difficult, expensive, and rare because the legal standard doesn't change just because enforcement priorities change. Let me give you some context about what happens in practice with denaturalization cases. In recent years, there have been cases where people who obtained naturalized citizenship through fraud were later discovered, and denaturalization proceedings began. These typically involve people who hid serious criminal history, who provided false biographical information, who were present in the country through fraudulent means at the time of naturalization, or who belonged to certain terrorist organizations or engaged in persecution. These cases take years, cost tens of thousands of dollars, and involve court proceedings where the defendant has the right to legal representation and to challenge the evidence. They are not quick, easy, or common. So here's what this means for you as a naturalized citizen. If you obtained your citizenship lawfully, answered questions honestly on your application, did not commit fraud, and disclosed what you were supposed to disclose, you have nothing to worry about from a legal perspective. Your citizenship is protected. It cannot be revoked simply because policy has changed or because someone in government decides they want to restrict immigration. The Constitution and decades of case law protect you. That said, there are some practical steps you should consider in the current climate. Not because your citizenship is in jeopardy, but because uncertainty can affect your peace of mind and your ability to help your family. First, keep your naturalization certificate in a safe place. You may want to make copies and store them separately if you ever need to prove your citizenship. This document is the clearest evidence you have. Second, understand your rights. As a U.S. citizen, you have the right to legal representation if you ever face any government action. You have the right to due process. You have rights that non-citizens do not have. Familiarize yourself with these rights so that if any situation arises, you know what protections you have. Third, if you have family members who are not yet naturalized citizens or who are permanent residents, help them understand their status and the importance of maintaining lawful status. Encourage permanent resident family members to apply for naturalization if they are eligible. Naturalized citizenship is more secure than permanent residence in uncertain times. If you have family members who are undocumented, do not encourage them to ignore legal processes or to remain in undocumented status hoping things will change. The current enforcement environment is not conducive to undocumented status being overlooked. This is a serious legal matter that should be addressed with a qualified immigration attorney. Fourth, keep records and documents related to your immigration history organized. This includes your naturalization certificate, your passport, any correspondence from USCIS, and records of your status progression from whatever your original status was to permanent residence to naturalization. If anything unusual ever happens, or if you're ever contacted by any government agency about your status, having organized documentation helps immensely. Having to scramble to find documents or reconstruct your history creates stress and uncertainty. Fifth, if you are helping other family members navigate immigration matters, be very careful about the advice you give and the sources you rely on. There is a tremendous amount of misinformation circulating right now about what's legal, what's changing, what people should do, and what they should fear. The only reliable sources for immigration information are the official USCIS website, USCIS customer service, and qualified immigration attorneys. Not YouTube videos, not social media, not stories from friends, and not news outlets that sensationalize immigration stories. If someone you care about needs immigration advice, they need a real attorney, not a second-hand account of what someone's cousin's neighbor did. Speaking of immigration attorneys, let me be clear about when you should consult one. If you are a naturalized citizen and you have never had any legal issues or complications with your immigration status, you likely do not need an attorney right now just to protect your citizenship. Your citizenship is protected by law. However, if you have family members with legal immigration issues, if you are trying to help someone navigate the immigration system, if you want to sponsor a relative for immigration benefits, or if you ever find yourself in a situation where government agents contact you about immigration matters, you should consult a qualified immigration attorney. Qualified means they are a licensed attorney. They specialize in immigration law, and ideally they are accredited by the Board of Immigration Appeals or work for a reputable immigration organization. Now let's talk about what the current policy environment actually means for you and your family going forward. If you have permanent resident family members who are eligible to apply for naturalization, this is a good time for them to apply. Naturalized citizenship provides more security than permanent residence. There is no guarantee that permanent resident status will remain unchanged, and naturalization provides finality and full constitutional protection. The naturalization process itself has not changed. It still requires meeting residency requirements, English proficiency, civics knowledge, and moral character. It still takes months to complete. But if your family members are eligible, pursuing naturalization is a prudent step. If you have undocumented family members, the current environment is not favorable for ignoring immigration status. Enforcement is active, deportations are happening, and undocumented status leaves people extremely vulnerable. This is a situation where family members genuinely need to consult with an immigration attorney about what options might exist. In some cases, pathways might exist that undocumented immigrants don't know about. In other cases, it might be necessary to develop a family plan that acknowledges reality and prepares for different scenarios. None of this should be done casually or without professional guidance. If you have family members outside the United States who you want to sponsor for immigration benefits, understand that the current administration may make this process more difficult, more expensive, or slower. Family-based immigration sponsorship is still legal and still happens, but sponsorship requirements may become stricter. The number of family visas available might decrease or processing times might increase. This is not something you should delay if you have a family member you want to bring to the country. Again, an immigration attorney can help you understand whether sponsorship is viable and what timeline to expect. Let's address the question of what happens if you ever need to travel outside the United States as a naturalized citizen. You are a U.S. citizen, and you should travel with a U.S. passport. You have the right to a U.S. passport. There is no denying this right to naturalized citizens. However, be aware that if you are traveling to your country of origin or other countries, you may face different treatment by those countries. Some countries do not fully recognize dual citizenship, even though the United States allows it. Some countries may have military service obligations or other citizenship-related requirements. This is not a U.S. immigration law issue, but it's something to be aware of. When traveling, carry your U.S. passport and your naturalization certificate if possible. This is the clearest proof of your U.S. citizenship. Let's talk about misinformation specifically because it's affecting how people interpret current events. One common claim is that the government is preparing to strip naturalized citizens of citizenship en masse. This is not happening. There is no legal mechanism for this. There is no legislative proposal for this, and it violates the Constitution. Do not believe this claim no matter how many times you see it online or hear it from friends. Another claim is that certain nationalities or religious groups are being targeted for denaturalization. Again, While immigration enforcement may focus on certain geographic areas or population groups, denaturalization cases are pursued based on fraud or legal violations, not on ethnicity or religion. Targeting citizenship revocation based on race, religion, or national origin would be unconstitutional. A third common claim is that you should do something dramatic right now to protect your citizenship, like renouncing your old citizenship if you haven't already, or getting a lawyer to file protective paperwork, or registering with some organization. None of these things are necessary. You do not need to take dramatic action to protect citizenship that is already legally protected. If you retain citizenship from your country of origin, that is between you and that country. It does not affect your U.S. citizenship. If you want to formally renounce your original citizenship, you can do that through the embassy of that country, but it's not required for your U.S. citizenship to be secure. You do not need to file protective paperwork with any organization. You do not need to pay money for citizenship protection services. These are things that prey on fear and take money from vulnerable people. Your citizenship is protected by the Constitution, not by extra paperwork. Here's what we know as fact. As of 2026, immigration enforcement is active and visible. The current administration prioritizes deportation of undocumented immigrants and enforcement of immigration laws. Some immigration policies have been tightened or changed. However, naturalized citizenship is constitutionally protected. The legal standard for denaturalization has not changed. There is no legal pathway for the government to revoke your citizenship without court proceedings and proof of fraud. If you obtained your citizenship lawfully and honestly, you are safe. This is not optimism or hope. This is legal fact. That said, understand that the immigration environment is different than it was a few years ago. There is more enforcement activity, more visibility of immigration issues in the news, more political focus on immigration, and more anxiety in immigrant communities. This is the reality, and it's reasonable to feel some concern or anxiety given these circumstances. But it's important to distinguish between a changed political and enforcement environment and a legal change that affects your status. Here's what you should do going forward. Stay informed about immigration news, but only from reliable sources. The USCIS website, the State Department website, reputable news organizations that do careful fact-checking, and licensed immigration attorneys are reliable sources. Social media, viral videos, forwarded messages, and speculation are not. Help your family understand their immigration status and what options exist for them. If anyone in your family needs legal help, connect them with a qualified attorney. Keep your documents organized and accessible. Understand your rights as a citizen. Know that you can legally change your name, get a passport, vote, run for office, sponsor family members, and live without fear of deportation. These are rights that citizenship provides, and they are real. If you have underlying anxiety about your status, even though you understand legally that you're protected, that's understandable. The immigration environment in America has been characterized by uncertainty and change for years. Even if your status is secure, you may have experienced years of worry, caution, or fear before becoming a citizen. That doesn't just disappear because you understand the law. If that's you, be gentle with yourself. Your fear made sense at one point, even if it's not necessary now. Reach out to community organizations, immigration advocates, or even counselors if you need support processing the stress and anxiety you've experienced. Let me be clear about something important. This channel and this video are not providing personal legal advice. Every immigration situation is unique. Every family's circumstances are different. This information is general education about immigration law and policy. It is not a substitute for consultation with a qualified immigration attorney about your specific situation. If you have any doubt about your status, if you have any legal complications in your immigration history, if you want to sponsor a family member, or if you want legal guidance about anything immigration related, you need to talk to an actual attorney who knows your complete situation. How do you find a qualified immigration attorney? Look for attorneys licensed to practice in your state who specialize in immigration law. You can check the Board of Immigration Appeals accredited representative list. If you want to verify credentials, you can contact the American Immigration Lawyers Association for referrals. You can ask community organizations, religious institutions, or immigrant advocacy groups for recommendations. Many attorneys offer free or low-cost consultations so you can talk to someone without paying a lot of money up front. Be cautious of anyone who guarantees results, promises you can stay in the country no matter what, or demands large payments in cash. These are red flags for immigration fraud or unethical practice. As we move through 2026 and beyond, immigration policy will continue to be a contested and changing area of American politics and law. Your task as a naturalized citizen is to understand that while policy may change, while enforcement may shift, while the political environment may feel uncertain, your citizenship is constitutionally protected. You have done what the law required. You have become an American citizen through a lawful process. That status is permanent, and it is yours. The way forward is not through fear or panic. The way forward is through knowledge, through staying informed from reliable sources, through helping your family understand their own status and options, and through recognizing that in the United States, despite all its flaws and challenges, the rule of law still provides real protections for those who understand how to use them. You have those protections now. Use them, understand them, and help others understand them too. If this video has been helpful, if you're feeling clearer about what naturalized citizenship actually means and what it actually protects, we release fact-based immigration information regularly, and we're committed to cutting through misinformation and giving you clarity. Share this video with anyone in your life who is a naturalized citizen or who is considering naturalization, and who might benefit from understanding what is actually protected and what is actually changing. Leave a comment below if you have questions about naturalized citizenship, if you want us to address a specific claim you've heard, or if there are other immigration topics you'd like us to cover with the same fact-based, reassuring approach. Your questions help us create content that serves your real needs. Thank you for being part of U.S. Immigration Update, where we believe accurate information is the best protection for immigrant families.